We are living in a postmodernist world. All of our art, architecture, and film is made in an era where we're built to question, contradict, and create. Postmodernism has come a long way since its inception in the 80s, but the core beliefs of the movement hold a strong influence of what we consume and how we consume it. Postmodernism can't exist without modernism and vice versa, but to understand postmodernism, we have to understand modernism. Let's start from the beginning. Before I start, I just want to emphasize that modern does not equal contemporary, at all. Of course, when these movements were first being created, they were based off of modern concepts, but it turns out, as time goes on, the phrase modernism can be kind of outdated. So that's why postmodernism can be called postmodernism. Back to the history. A driving force behind the modernist movement is the implementation of photography, specifically with the sale of the Kodak Brownie. Because of this, people didn't really need artists to paint pictures of them because they could just take it themselves. Because of this, a lot of portrait commissions fell out of style, and oh my god, here come the Impressionists. Impressionism is the idea of capturing light and color to create a picture rather than adhering to shapes or strict rules. Artists like Edouard Manet defied compositional and political expectations by breaking the rules of the Academy in Paris. Artists at the Academy believed that art should be formulaic, functional, beautiful, and most importantly, approved by the state. In comes Olympia. A key example of Manet's boundary breaking lies in Olympia, an oil painting from 1865. Manet's Olympia challenges the idea by painting the figure of a real woman as opposed to a godly figure. Olympia is nude and staring right at the viewer, rather than daintily looking away or trying to cover herself up. The shadows are in unexpected places, such as on her hands or feet, which makes them look dirty. On the other hand, her body looks pale and seems dead-looking. Understandably, the Academy was not happy about Olympia, but not even the biggest art superpower in the entire world could stop what happened next. Now that it wasn't completely necessary to create photorealistic, godly images, artists could do whatever they wanted. This led to movements like Cubism, Futurism, and Fauvism becoming more and more popular among artists. Postmodernism started in the late 20th century with the rise of conceptualism in installation pieces, and postmodernism didn't really have a starting point like modernism did. In fact, both art movements coexisted at one point in time. Postmodernism aims to break the rules, but doesn't necessarily establish new ones. Rather, postmodernist artists comment on, conceptualize, contradict, and completely destroy the concepts that came before them. In fact, postmodernism was the perfect platform for political artists to find their voices. Postmodern artists like Keith Haring used symbolism and abstraction to convey political messages about homosexuality and the HIV/AIDS epidemic in the late 80s and early 90s. Postmodernism heightens the level of commentary and social awareness of modernism. Postmodern television works similarly. It tries to comment on, satirize, or pay homage to the elements of modern television. My favorite example of a postmodernist show is Community. For some people out there, community college is a fantastic opportunity. You could be a single mother trying to get your degree, a high school dropout, or a disbarred lawyer that was recently discovered to have a fake degree. Throw in a theatrical dean, a few meta jokes, and a campus that's practically falling apart, and you've got Community. Dan Harmon's Community first aired on NBC in September of 2009 and tells the tale of a diverse bunch of community college students who form a study group and bond over a series of shared experiences at their dysfunctional school, Greendale Community College. As a show, Community was praised for its self-referential style, tongue-in-cheek rehashes of pop culture, and its meta-joke-telling, not to mention the wonderfully well-developed characters. There's Jeff Winger, the aforementioned disbarred lawyer, Britta Perry, the activist who doesn't vote, Annie Edison, the naive former drug addict, Shirley Bennett, a highly religious single mother, Pierce Hawthorne, a lonely elderly millionaire, Troy Barnes, a high school football star who lost his scholarship due to an injury, and finally, Abid Nadir, a film student who practically sees all of the study group's adventures through the lens of a camera. Apart from the main cast, there's Ben Chang, who's a more than unqualified Spanish teacher, and Dean Pelton, a dramatic character that can only be described by a Greendale School Committee member as a pansexual imp. It's no secret that Community is, as Pierce would say, streets ahead.
If you have to ask, your streets behind.
However, the genre episodes offer another layer of postmodernist goodness. If you don't know what postmodernism is, here's a quick recap. Postmodernism is the art movement that comments on, satirizes, or pays homage to the elements of modernism. Contradiction is what makes postmodernism fun and interesting to enjoy. Community is considered postmodernist because of the way it pays homage to the greats of television and plays with the viewer's expectations. A fan-favorite genre episode is the episode Remedial Chaos Theory. This episode, like all other genre episodes, creates a storyline that is completely enveloped in the genre outside of Community's usual formula. In Remedial Chaos Theory, Harmon explores the idea of separate timelines. The episode begins with a study group visiting Troy and Abed's new apartment for the first time. Jeff rolls a dice to see who will leave the apartment and get the pizza, which leads him to create up to 7 different timelines, each depending on who is in the apartment and who isn't. Each character has universal constants, such as lines or actions that they repeat in some way or another in every timeline. Jeff will always bang his head on the low ceiling fan. Pierce will always give Troy a terrifying Norwegian troll doll as a housewarming gift. Britta will always sneak off into the bathroom to smoke pot. Abed will always end every timeline by saying,
I wonder what happened in those other timelines.
As the episode goes on, the audience becomes more familiar with and expects the constants to show up in one form or another. With this idea of expectation, the writers can get creative by introducing the constants in different ways. For instance, Annie's gun. In the first timeline, when Annie isn't in the apartment, Troy finds a gun in her purse, which is a sign that the neighborhood she's currently living in isn't exactly safe. Annie is seen as the young, innocent one of the group, so the idea of her owning a gun is shocking. A few timelines later, when Troy leaves the apartment, he isn't around to discover Annie's gun. Instead, the gun is introduced when Annie trips and her purse falls to the ground and shoots Pierce in the leg.
What the hell?
Postmodernism is an art movement that works just like Community. It defies expectations, contradicts the constructed, and questions everything before it. Shows created in the postmodernist era are unique and set the bar higher and higher in terms of writing, development, and conceptual design. Community is a show that I, like many others, hold near and dear to my heart because it helped me look at television more critically. Understanding the elements of postmodernism is integral to understanding contemporary art, books, architecture, and film. To this day, artists and creators fabricate pieces that comment on, satirize, and deconstruct the pieces before it. Being able to recognize and understand the intricate facets of art make it exponentially richer. The next time you watch an episode of Community, admire a painting, or read a book, take a second to appreciate just how cool postmodernism is. Or, as Abed would say,
Cool.